Oh, by the way, the interview is going to be done by Joaquin Phoenix. Okay, okay.
It's like, why is the Joker interviewing me and asking
This
why is
was
he asking me what superpower I want?
I finally watched. I finally watched.
I
Finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
I finally watched.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
and this is Alon, and I finally watched Come On, Come On.
I also finally watched Come On, Come On. So we're doing A24 in August, and we have 4 films lined up. And then for this first one, I wanted to do either Come On, Come On or 20th Century Women, which is both are directed by Mike Mills.
And since we don't like to talk about women on this podcast, we went with Come On, Come On.
Yeah, no, that's not it. So we did Beginners earlier, which was not, it was his second film. So he did a movie called Thumbsucker, which has a lot of people in it, and I heard of when it came out in '05, but I've never seen. I looked it up. It's only on DVD. Probably stream it somewhere. But I loved Beginners. I watched 20th Century Women sometime last year, and I almost think I like that more than Beginners. Like, I love both of those. And so you were like, I think I let you just decide because I've wanted to watch Come On, Come On, sort of holding off so that we could do it for this.
It wasn't so much that it was a decision between Come On, Come On and 20th Century Women. I think it was because we were in a time crunch and we wanted to do something that we could get through kind of fast, which, ironically, we were no longer in the time crunch, so we could have done anything.
Well, no, I think the other one's pretty short too. I think I just wanted to do one of these movies because I like the director a lot. Like,
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's right. I picked Come On, Come On because I thought it was that movie with Mads Mikkelsen. I didn't think it was this movie.
like another round.
I thought it was another round.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's an
Uh,
A24, isn't it?
no, it's just a
Oh,
full. It's just like might be Neon. I don't know.
yeah.
We can do that one. I love that movie. I think they had talked about doing an American version of that, which is, I don't know. That movie got pretty big. It's on. I think it's probably on Hulu or something like that. It doesn't seem necessary. Um, but so I love the 3 of movies of his I've seen. He's only done 4 movies, and so it's like it's hard to say like, oh, he's one of my favorite directors when he's only done 4 movies. I've only seen 3 of his movies, but I love Beginners. I think you liked it a lot too. I I think Come On, Come On right now might be my least favorite, but that's just because of how much I like the other 2.
I think people have been saying like certain directors are their favorite directors who only have 3 movies or less under their belt, like Jordan Peele and um, Lathamos.
Yorgos has way more than 3.
Yorgos has more than 3. There's another couple directors who only had like 3. Who did The Northman?
Um, is that Eggers?
That is Eggers. So Eggers is definitely one of them.
Hereditary, The Witch, or did he do Hereditary?
No, The Witch, Lighthouse.
White Lighthouse, right? And then
Yeah.
the other guy who did Hereditary, Midsommar, Ari Aster, and
Yeah,
Beau's
yeah.
Afraid. Which Beau's Afraid. I don't know if Beau's Afraid is so fucking long that we're not going to do it this month, but eventually we will do it. Oh yeah, it's also not that old. So my point is, I love this director. And I didn't realize, so when we did Beginners because I had just watched 20th Century Women. Now it's kind of coming back to me. And I talked a little bit about how it almost felt like the mom character in Beginners that is like leaves. She's like a very small part in a flashback, is sort of the mom from 20th Century Women. And I was listening to an interview today in preparation for this from the director, and the dad from Beginners is his dad. The mom from 20th Century Woman is his mom. And this child isn't his child because he was talking about how, like, when he did those movies about his mom and dad, they were both gone. So it felt a little less like he needed to, like, keep their privacy as much. And so for this one, he wanted to do like a child relationship. But it's funny that this is almost like an unofficial trilogy of movies.
Yeah, you're getting to that. Like the way you're making these points is that's how I feel. This guy obviously has things to work out, right? And it's kind of nice that he's working it out through his art. It reminds me of like Baumbach movies, right? Like Squid and the Whale and The other ones just seem like he's working out more like his differentiate, like the way he kind of maybe butt heads with his dad and stuff like that.
Yeah, I will say that Bombax movies, especially like the earlier ones, are more like, I don't know if nihilistic is the right word, but you know what I mean. Like more like kind of you just have a lot of assholes in the movie, and they're not very optimistic about life.
He did Merowitz, right?
Yeah, no, he got as I think after he met
Greta.
uh, Greta. Yeah, after he met Greta, I think his worldview got a little better. Um, I think these movies are a lot more hopeful. And so I think that is like a slight difference. This movie, Come On, is actually like very simplistic in like what it is. It's like I could see a lot of people, if I was if I was like a douche, I'd be like, oh, just people don't get it. But I think the movie's like is like very subtle in that it just might not be for someone. Like the fact that there's not really like a story. You know what I mean? It's just sort of like a few weeks in the life and like this
Yeah,
relationship developing, but there's no
yeah.
like plot
Well,
per se.
there's a lot of character driven plot,
Right.
right? Like there's a lot of growing that Joaquin Phoenix's character does. There's a lot of growing that the kid does, and it's the realization. We don't get the end result of Scoot McNairy's character.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw him on screen, I was like, oh, "Who's this motherfucker?" I was like, "Scoot." Um, yeah, we don't we don't get we don't even get like a real conclusion to the mom's character, but there is something really beautiful about the relationship that develops between Phoenix and the kid, and then how they grow from that relationship. Let me ask you, and as a father, did that did you pick up certain things that you were like, this hits me more like now than maybe it would have earlier, or because it's like a separation of uncle and nephew, you couldn't get there?
No, it does. One of the things he said in an interview, and it like clicked as he was saying it too. He purposely chose an uncle character, one, to create that distance from like his actual child, and trying to portray like too much of who his child is. But then two, he said as he was going through it, he realized that it was sort of a good vessel having the uncle, because it like made it more clear that everything that was happening was new and he didn't know how to react to it. And
That's
he's
another thing, right? Because as an uncle, you can kind of just jump in a kid's life. It sounded weird, but it's a good excuse on why he wasn't there from like years 1 through 9.
correct. But the reason he did it is that like the uncle not really knowing how to react as a parent, you don't really know how to react either, right? And the mom keeps making that point where she's like, yeah, it's not easy for me either. Like I deal with him every day, and it's never easy. And he would say, oh, this thing happened, and she'd be like, she wouldn't get mad at him, or she wouldn't be like, well, why did you let that happen? She'd be like, yeah, that shit happens. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
you're not really doing anything wrong. It's just this is how it is. And there were also a lot of things too that like really like hit, like so like the kid like, oh, I don't have any friends, and my when my son went to school for the first time last year, like he was like, oh, I'm not playing with other people, but it's like he was 4, so it was just kind of a little bit more natural, like that kids, it's funny, like you see girls at that age and they sort of like will join up and like talk with each other and play, and the boys will just all like play separately. And like the
I
boys,
I used to play with the girls, so I don't know.
well, and he tried that too, but the girls were more like,
Catty
consolidated in
and
their own
bitchy
little
at 4
thing.
years old.
Let me tell you. No, I'm just saying, like, it was just like people clicked up very quickly, and like then
Yeah,
people like because they're young, they would like change to who they would want to hang out with throughout the year. So it's just like the drama of it was really funny, and like
yeah.
that scene where he's like, I don't have any friends. I mostly just hang out with adults. Like I was like, oh, that's like really like it kind of hit me like, oh, that's really it's like one of the things you can't really control as a parent, but you worry about. You're like, I hope my kid's not weird. I hope he like can make friends. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
but you do hope your kid is weird, right? But you hope he finds other weird kids to be friends with. That I think that's like, you don't want
well,
your kid to be a douche, right?
there's levels
So
of weird, right?
sure. I mean, Yeah, like burning effigies in the yard. You don't want them to be that weird. Hey, just real quick before we dive deep into the plot, we delayed this by a day because I got invited. Well, actually, we both got invited to that A24 letterbox thing. Yours was through Movie Pass, but it was a special showing of A24's new movie Sing Sing with Coleman Domingo, and uh, I went because it's just down the street for me. You couldn't go because you have three children and
And the closest showing was your theater.
two 2.5 hours
Yeah,
away.
two and a half,
Yeah,
3 hours away.
exactly. So I don't want to give anything away because it's a really cool movie to kind of watch and dissect yourself in the moment. Hopefully, it comes out to be more like available to a wider audience. But it's really good, like surprisingly good. It was a free showing, and wife and I just went because we had nothing to do during a, a thunderstorm. But it was really special and it was really good, and I highly recommend. And that's my A24 recommendation for the month. Sing Sing.
I I think one of the reasons we decided to do A24, and there are a lot of studios like this though, that this is just sort of like the film broiest one of them. But you have, like we said, Neon earlier.
No, you're saying A24 is the film broiest?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have what was it? Sony Pictures Classics is
Oh,
one that I
only
was.
real film bros, only real douchebags like the Lighthouse. I mean, only real fucking film meatheads would drive to a location, dress as the two Lighthouse characters, and have a photo shoot, and then take it and make it the title poster for their podcast. Only real fucking losers would do that.
It's your idea. And then Focus Features was kind of like the OG. Like it was the A24 before A24.
I remember Focus Feature. Let me ask you something. So when I graduated college, I was applying for jobs everywhere. I was just sending out resumes after resumes. But of course, it wasn't just like I wanted to get a film job, right? And I was like, I was willing to move anywhere. LA, North Carolina, New York. I didn't really want to move to New York, but I would have. So I sent out all my applications all over the country. And one of them, I really thought I was going to get it. I don't know why. I never even got past the first like initial thing, but I really wanted. It was a job in North Carolina for Screen Gems. You remember Screen Gems?
I do not.
No, Screen Gems was like an up and coming studio, and I noticed its potential. I was wrong because I don't think it really went anywhere. Um, but Blumhouse is another one.
Yeah, there's another really small one that I liked. Oscilloscope, which was I think
Oscilloscope, yeah,
either one or two of the Beastie Boys was involved with, and
it's pretty cool.
I think who are the brothers that did Uncut Gems and Good
Yeah.
Time?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think one of their
Them.
first movies came out with Oscilloscope. Anyway, not important at all. I think we should get into the plot, which is not going to take that long, because basically Joaquin Phoenix is he's like an NPR radio guy that is doing a project where he's going around and interviewing kids to ask them about the future.
Real kids.
Real
Like
kids.
like in the movie, it's real kids.
So all the kids are real.
We should clarify. They're playing themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real people.
Real people.
The woman that is helping him do the interviews, she works for NPR, I think Radio Lab.
Oh, she's a real person too.
NPR, yeah. I mean, Joaquin's a real person too.
Well,
so like, yeah, it's a lot of the people outside of like 4 or 5 of them are just kind of people who are like it's their real life that they're talking about.
A24 does that a lot, doesn't it? Don't they? Kind of just get like real people off the street.
I mean, the Florida Project was something like that, and then I don't know if there's any others.
There was those brothers that we were talking about. Their first movie was
Safdie. The Safdie brothers.
There, the Safdie brothers' first movie was something like that too.
Didn't
Shia LaBeouf do something like that too?
Shia LaBeouf. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm saying yes. I'm saying he
probably. One of Shiloh's things he did was he did one of those Project Greenlight movies. Do you remember that when Damon and Affleck did this thing for HBO where they like tried to find some of the script, and he was in one of those movies, I believe. So anyway, going around the country interviewing kids, and then he gets a call from his sister, and his sister's basically like, "Yeah, my husband, who I think is he bipolar or schizophrenic, something along those
Something like
lines."
that. Severe mental issues.
Yeah, I think I don't know that bipolar would fit, but I remember seeing at one point Joaquin does this like story time thing, and it's like Mama Polar Bear, Daddy Polar Bear, like Little Polar Bear. I was like, is the polars for bipolar? Um, I
Probably
love
not.
similar to Beginners, and I think probably 20th Century Women, but I more remembered in Beginners. The flashbacks, right, to the mom who's not even alive at the time, at the actual time of this movie,
Yeah.
and the flashbacks to the fighting with his sister, and it sort of builds up as it goes along. You get more and more information. So, the sister calls and she's like, "Yeah, I had to explain to Jesse, who's the 9-year-old in the story, that it was you on the radio. He doesn't recognize your voice." And Joaquin's like, "Oh wow," and then she's like, "I need someone to come out here and watch him."
Well, it's also the irony, right, between like he's getting level with these like uh, kids, like really trying to peel back their emotional state, and like, hey, kids aren't just these stupid little kids, these stupid little creatures walking around. They have like their own hopes, thoughts, dreams, and fears, right? And he's really trying to peel back all of these like deep layers of inner adolescence, and then he can barely handle like watching over one of his own, and
Well,
like he just doesn't like, he doesn't use the same sort of stuff that he does when he approaches the street kids, not street kids, but the interview kids that he does with Jesse.
Well, and he makes the point at some point in the movie, either through a quote or through him speaking into his tape recorder at night, because that's like a common thing he does. Is every night he speaks into the tape recorder basically as a diary, um, and he explains that interviewers like what he does. They get to be with the subject for a little bit, immerse themselves, and then they get to go home while that subject has to just live in their life. And usually they're interviewing someone who's not having a great life, because that's
Right.
what like the story they're doing. And so, now he is like, not that Jesse's has a bad life, but he has a little bit of a difficult life with his dad. um he has to kind of stay in that, and we find out throughout the movie that he basically told the mom to give up on the dad, because I think he says later on, he's like, "I just told her to take care of herself,"
Yeah.
which is his way of getting around saying like, "Yeah, I told her to fuck him, tell him to fuck off and like deal with it on his
No, don't
own."
fuck him. Don't.
Well, she did at least once. Um, and then you find out this is like, I watched it again because we had the extra time and we moved when we were going to record this. But I guess it's interesting that the dad, Scoot McNairy, works for the symphony. So
Yeah.
he's got like what seems to be a pretty impressive job, but he also has this shit that he's dealing with.
Disabilitating thing. Yeah.
One of the coolest shots of this movie is when Joaquin makes it to LA, and I think he gets dropped off in like an Uber or a cab in front of their house, and it's just like the street has the perfect view of LA, like downtown LA in the background. Um, and it's like, I think it's like shots like that is like, oh, that's like why we chose black and white. You know what I mean? Because I think it almost looks better in black and white.
Do you ever catch yourself watching a black and white movie and you just like your brain just fills in the color?
I think that's like sort of a natural thing. Yeah, a little bit, or you just stop noticing it for a while, right?
I
And
guess that's
especially,
what I guess that's what I mean. Yeah.
and sort of, I think for newer movies, because the it's like the filming is so much better. Like you're looking at like a higher quality picture, that like it's less pixelated, so you're seeing it better. That it also just is easier to kind of get lost in the fact that you're watching something in black and white. Whereas you're watching something older, it's easier to like the differences in like in like the grayscale, I think is slightly better, the newer the movie is. Um,
That's true too. Yeah.
so we meet Jesse, kind of going through things, and then it starts with the orphan play that he does, and and
Yeah.
her introduction to it, she's like, "Oh boy, are you ready for this?" And he's like, "What the fuck is going on?"
It's strange, to say the least. I mean, I played pretend when I was a kid. Um, Nothing like that though.
But there's definitely like, I don't know. I feel like if your child's doing that over and over, I don't know that the appropriate age to start like therapy. But I mean, I don't think it would hurt to have him talk to someone about why he wants to continually.
No, no, no. Yeah, I mean,
Do you
you're
think
right.
it has?
I don't think I don't think a therapist could do more damage.
I wonder if it has to do with like, later on he brings up the fact that she had an abortion. It's like a very small little bit where he's like, I heard, is that why he's doing it? We don't really get a resolution
I
on
didn't
why
think
he's.
he even knew it. Oh no, he did know it. Joaquin didn't know it.
Well, he
You
didn't know
know,
about. Yeah,
I
but
think
I'm
that happens. Does that happen a lot with like single moms? He,
what?
well, like I feel like my mom did this to me. My mom's not even a single mom, but my dad works a lot, right? Or worked a lot, so he's gone all the time. So your parents, in this case, your mom, would divulge
Oh, things she
just
shouldn't.
just things she shouldn't, or like all this personal information, just trauma dumps it on their kid. I mean, my mom certainly has to me, and it's just like it's a lot. It's like as a kid, you were just like, well, I could have just done without that, right? But like as a parent, you just need to tell some. See, that's why the parents probably need more therapy than the kid.
You're almost treating the kid as like, yeah. Have you like heard the term like a sin eater?
Like emotional incest, like that.
No, sin eater is basically it's this idea of like you have something horrible happen. So I'll give you an example. I had a horrible dream last night that like really bad, and I was like, I want to tell Ashley about it, but I know it'll just make her feel bad.
Oh,
It'll make me feel better by telling her like the
right,
dream, but it'll make her feel bad having to hear about it. Like something happened to one of our kids
yeah,
in my dream.
right,
And so that's like the concept of like she's telling her kid almost to get it off her chest because maybe there's some guilt in the fact that like that could have been your brother or sister, or like what if she had been contemplating that with him because of her husband's illness, you know what I mean, like what like the reasons why she told him
yep,
that.
yep,
I think there's definitely maybe like they don't unpack it enough in the movie, or maybe the movie's just allowing you to think about it, but there is something to that, like the fact that he knows that about his mom, and then the fact that he does this orphan bit with her all the time, you know what I mean. And she is like a granola-y type mom who's like,
yeah.
I'm going to talk to my kid like an adult and he can handle it at 9 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a problem with like not goo goo gaga your kid and talk to them like an adult, right? But don't sin eater, don't trauma dump, don't treat your kid. Have you heard of like emotional incest? You know what that is? It's
Yeah.
kind of that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Where you treat your kid
Like
like you.
yeah, if your husband's gone, you treat them, you
Yeah,
have,
yeah,
it's not, yeah, like emotionally, like relationship wise, you like talk to them as if because you don't have your husband to talk to. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Nothing weird. Nothing too bad. Um, just bad for the brain. But yeah, no. So I feel a lot of that from her, from the mom character. You get a lot of that, and you also get, I think, like you said, you get a lot of guilt from her character too.
A lot of guilt, and also, yeah, I mean, she had the trauma because she felt like the mom and her mom and her dad sort of like she was like the black sheep a little bit, whereas Joaquin was not. And she like was like, oh, I tried to call our parents on their
Yeah,
bullshit, and
that's
you
right.
sort of let them get away with it. Like,
No, there was
it-
this like real pivotal scene where the mom's like on her deathbed, and how she treats Joaquin and how she treats the sister. It was like I forget exactly what she said. You watched it more recently than
she was like, you feed into her delusions. You're always feeding into their delusions. And Joaquin's like, this is the time we should feed in delusions. Like, she's dying. Why not?
no. There's that, but there was another scene where like she turns to Joaquin and she was like something like, "Oh, thank you" or something, and then she turns to the daughter and and their mother was like, um, "So have you done anything interesting with your life lately?" or something like that, right? And I was just it was such a polar opposite treatment. Um, but yeah, I felt that too.
Well, in that scene I was talking about, it kind of comes because I love the use of flashbacks in this, but like the uh the son at one point, he's like, oh, I don't want to do the interview questions because Joaquin tries to do it with him. He's like, I'm not going to do it. And then but then he asks him a question, and there's kind of this theme of him asking Joaquin, the person who gets asked questions, him asking questions all the time. He's
Yep.
like, why did you and mom stop talking? And it leads to that flashback. And then after that, he's like, why are you not married? And he's like, Joaquin later on is like, oh, I just made a weird joke about it. I couldn't be real with him about like, oh, I still miss Luisa, and like she left me, and it wasn't my choice. And then we go on to like, there's another scene where he's like, should I call you Johnny or should I call you Dad? And I was like, oh, that's fucking weird. But then you realize, oh, he's playing the orphan bit again. And Joaquin's like, why does it have to be weird? Why can't this be normal? And the kid's like, why? This is normal. Like, why is this not
Like
normal?
what's normal? What's
Yeah,
normal
what's
to you?
weird?
And
What's
he's
weird?
like fair. Yeah. A lot of this too is kind of like you have these two men, right? One is kind of at their midlife crisis point of life, right? And then the other one is just getting into adolescence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have them being quite vulnerable with each other throughout the movie, which, just to tie back to Sing Sing, it's what a lot of the movie is about too, is the vulnerability of masculinity. And it's interesting how this movie, Come On, Come On, treats it is like it's okay to be emotional, and the kid is almost scared to be too emotional because he sees his dad being like the side effects of the wrongdoings of being quote unquote too emotional. But Joaquin Phoenix
Toxic
is
masculinity, man.
no. But what I'm saying is Joaquin Phoenix instills in him, like tries to teach him, it's like, no, you can be emotional. It's okay to be emotional. Doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean you're like your dad just because you're emotional. So I thought that was a really interesting way of like, it was like generational trauma mixed with being vulnerable as a person. I thought it was cool.
Yeah. So the mom calls and is like, oh, I have to be here longer. And he's like, oh, well, what about New York? I got to figure that out. And then he just asked the kid, like, hey, do you want to go to New York? And the mom's like, you can't ask a fucking 9-year-old if he wants to go to New York before you ask the mother.
To be fair, it's not really fair of her to throw this on him and then be like, hey, I need you to watch my kid for another week. At the same time, I can't let you go back to your job.
Well, as she said, I'm going to find someone else. I think when I watched it again today, what it felt like, and it happens to me a lot. It happens to my dad all the time when I'll say something to him. If you throw out an idea and you've never thought it, and I've never thought about it, or if I throw out an idea to my dad and he's never thought about it before, the first thought is just like, what, are you fucking kidding me? No, that's not happening. So you like out of the blue are like, hey, I want to take your 9-year-old to New York. And she's like, what? And she's also fucking dealing with like a lot of shit right now. So she doesn't have like the mental capacity to deal with this. And she's like, you fucking moron. Like, how could you do this? And then the next day or later that day, she's like, when she had just some time to think about it, she's like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Like, yeah, can you take him? Or she had no one else. So she didn't have an option. She's like, all right, you can take him to New York. But I think like just throwing that on her and be like, hey, I already told your son about it. She's like, why the fuck would you, like, you fucked me on this? Because she also knows,
Yeah, because
like,
if he can't go, then he's just gonna blame her.
absolutely.
Although Joaquin Phoenix did a good job of like kind of covering that up, right?
He's like, I couldn't tell him. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to tell. I don't know what I'm going to do. Would have been interesting. That's like another interesting way it could have gone. But I think obviously this makes more sense. And when they fly to New York, the song playing when they land is "Come On, Come On," or that's the lyrics. I don't know what the name of the song is, but the lyrics literally, as the plane is in the air, is like "Come on, come on."
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I thought when we get to New York and there's like a scene of them walking under the bridge, and then a lot of the New York stuff just obviously reminds me, it's black and white in New York, so Manhattan and then Francis Ha.
Right.
The walking under the bridge specifically, because that's like a famous like shot in Manhattan. And then he starts going around with his work buddies, and the scene with the kid in the like at the diner, I guess, talking about his conspiracy theories. I love the idea that like, oh, you have to eat this pasta so you can eat this ice cream, which like neither of them are that great for you. You know what I mean? Like it's like you're just trying to get normal food into the kid. We have that fucking ordeal all the time. Our 3-year-old will not eat anything right now.
You know what's so funny is in Japan, I was watching this video where this American interviewer, kind of like what we have here in this movie, right? But she was in Japan and she was interviewing Japanese kids, and she was like, "Well, what's your favorite food?" And the little kid says broccoli. And he asks another kid, and this little kid says sweet potato, and this little kid says rice. And she thought she was like being punked. She was like, "Okay, very funny." So she went to the teacher, and the teacher was like clarifying. She's like, "Well, how is that not real answers? Like, why do you think that's not real answers? Here in Japan, we teach our kids to like healthy food. What do you do in America?" And then it's like, whoa, like holy shit, And I think it's like, I'm not saying it's your fault, David, but I think society, American society, all around us is always pushing crazy fruity sugary cereals and snacks and candy, and like everywhere you go is an advertisement for fucking shit and junk, right? So it's like, it's not surprising that when you have a society that doesn't really push that, you have kids liking more complex things than what's being like media throwing at them.
Yeah, there's that. So I mean, I was just thinking back to my friend Zach that you've met. We were out eating and he brought his daughter. I think she was like 1.5 at the time. And they just ordered her broccoli and she was just destroying it. And I was like, man, we really fucked up not having our son eating broccoli, like, because he ate a ton of here, the way it has worked with all of our kids is they ate a ton in the beginning, and then they slowly but surely just wanted to eat like the good tasting things until they like for a while, and then they get this like from 2 to 3 where they just don't want to eat shit except like PB&J, and then you can slowly break them out of it. And it's just a struggle because like you'd almost have to just only feed them like chicken, broccoli, rice, like sweet potatoes. You know what I mean? Like you only have,
Meal prep those fools.
you know what I mean? Like if you ever give them anything that's like treat whatsoever, they're just like, oh, I just want fucking treats.
Yeah, but I
But
mean, maybe I'm under the delusion of, if they don't know about treat, why would they ever ask for treat?
yeah, but that's my point, is you'd have to almost only give them the other stuff, and then like I don't know, what
I
kind
know
of way
it's
to live is
hard.
that?
It's well, I mean, it's not like that. It's you can give them like a healthy treat, like instead of a candy, right? Instead of gummy bears or worms, you give them blueberries or strawberries, right? That's their treat
I
because
mean,
that's sweeter.
my kids still fuck up fruit, my guy, but
Right,
that's also
right.
really expensive.
I'm just saying. I'm just
I went and
saying.
bought a thing of raspberries, and then I was like, I just got one because you never
Raspberries are
know.
fucking killer.
And they like, I literally brought it home right before lunch, and my wife walks out and she's like, "You should have gotten more raspberries. The raspberries are
Oh, I
gone."
thought you were talking about price. Raspberries are super expensive.
Everything is. I mean, you really. So they eat raspberries, blueberries, apples, bananas, watermelon. They'll eat pretty much all those fruits, and so I just buy whatever's like
Yeah.
on sale.
No. I know. I'm just kind of I'm being harsh or whatever, but
But
I'm just
but I think it's just natural that like if you ever introduce a tasty thing, which most people do, they then all of a sudden want that. So like for example, they would eat PB&J pretty regularly, and then we gave them Nutella from time to time, and now my son's like, I don't fucking want PB&J, I want Nutella. So like we've had to be like, no, you don't.
yeah.
But
Dude,
then
I saw something so great in the store. I've Uncrustables?
uh-huh,
They have Nutella Uncrustables now.
I know.
Holy fuck.
I don't like Uncrustables. Just make your own fucking PB&J. Just buy some bread. It's like way better.
I mean, it's better, but it's just like see, that's the issue. It's faster and it's cheaper, and it's
I mean, I don't know that it's cheaper.
it's not cheaper, but time is money. And if you look at life like that, then it is cheaper. But anyways, let's get back to the movie. My point is that it's so interesting how in a different world, different culture, you're just like, what's your favorite food? A little kid says broccoli, and then people are just like, all right, little kid, stop fucking with me. Really, what's your favorite food?
Yeah. No, I mean, that is a huge thing about like American diets. The fact that we eat such like processed, boxed up,
Yeah.
sugary bullshit. Which is
I mean, even like non-processed stuff. Like my mother-in-law went to France recently, and like I've heard this from so many people, It's like you have like IBS and so many indigestion problems here. They go
Yeah.
to a different country. They eat the same amount of food, if not more, and if not like quote unquote worse food for you, right? Like more baked goods, more whatever. And they have none of the dietary problems that they have in America. And it's just because we put preservatives in literally preservatives, microplastics, whatever you want to call it. Everything we produce is just tainted in taint. So,
With taints. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Anyways, yeah, so he gets some sugar high, right? Back to the movie. Joaquin Phoenix gets Jesse's sugar
I
high.
love the next day when she's like, he was like, yeah, you wouldn't go to sleep, did it? She's like, well, did you give him sugar? He's like, no.
Yeah, just deny.
Her line too of I love him, but sometimes I hate being in the same room with him. Like,
You feel that?
especially as a single mom, because Ashley and I will like tag team where I'm just like, I'm fucking done with him right now. Like, you gotta, what this one issue we're dealing with right now is he like doesn't eat as much dinner. Even if he does eat his full dinner, he then like 2 hours later before bedtime basically wants to eat a whole nother dinner. And it's like, you can't eat a whole nother dinner
Second dinner.
before bedtime.
Second dinner.
Um,
That's probably just because he doesn't want to go to bed.
well, yeah, that's part of it. He ate like 7 Hawaiian rolls last night before bed.
You're supposed to bake those?
That's bullshit. Fuck that. No, you're not supposed to bake them. They taste delicious the way they are. I don't understand who said that. Fuck them.
Okay.
Even if it's the company.
Just try it.
No, they
Just
taste.
throw them in a pan for 12 minutes in an oven and see what happens. Maybe your life will change.
I don't eat them because they're not great for you. I'm off,
Yeah, give it to your kids. Good job.
I'm off bread right now.
That's right, you are. So we get the Lost in. Is this the Lost in New York scene? No, we're in the grocery store, the convenience store.
Right. Well, yeah. So there's the first time he loses him. It is funny that he loses him twice because like that is the fucking biggest fear. We had.
I was gonna say, have you ever lost a kid?
Not out because I'm super fucking hyper vigilant about it. But even if you are, you can like every once in a while, like I'll be like, oh shit, I haven't looked for him for 10 seconds, and I look and he's still there. But our 3-year-old daughter, maybe like when she was like 1.5, my wife just comes running in the room. She's like, I don't know where she is. I was like, what the fuck you mean? And so first,
Wait, do I remember this? She was
I
in
think I
the
told you.
yard, right?
Yeah. So I run, look at the pool. She's not in the pool. So like, all right, thank God. Run, look in the rooms. And then as I'm coming back out, I just see her. She like went up into the playground area. Like, and we have a little like monkey bar jungle gym thing with the slide. And
Yeah.
she fucking was like not hiding, just climbing up there, sliding down the slide. And I'm like, now she was running back to come inside. And we're like, just because the door, I think my dad had like left it slightly ajar, and she was able to get out.
Blame your dad. Good one.
I did.
Good job.
I called him and yelled at him. Anyway, fucking like the most horrible thoughts in your head, like immediately floated in, like, oh, they're gone. You know what I mean? Like until you find them, they're just gone.
One time, we lost my sister, and she was in the house, and we looked everywhere. We looked in the room, we looked in the closet, we looked under the bed, everywhere. We lived on a golf course at the time, so we were like, did she run away? Did someone kidnap her through the window and take her through the golf course? We had the neighborhood streets locked down because we had like police in the neighborhood, so they locked down the streets. We had an Amber Alert out. It was the whole shebang. Helicopters over the golf course trying to find her little girl body. I think she was like 3 or 4. She must have been like 4. And my mom loves decorative pillows on the bed, like 6 layers of decorative pillows on the bed. Anyway, somehow she just kind of fell asleep and fell back behind like the 6 layers of pillows. Even the fact that we were in the room yelling her name, she was right there. She didn't wake up.
All of that makes sense. The decorative pillows, your mom like loving decorative pillows, and her just falling asleep in there. That all tracks for me.
Yeah. Yep.
So what I love about the scene in the convenience store. So first of all, he scares the shit out of him. Before that, he's asking about this like fucking singing toothbrush that'll like sing, so it tells you how long you need to be brushing your teeth.
He's like, you don't need that.
He gets so pissed at the kid for hiding, yells at him, calls the mom. The kid yells back at him. later on, the kid is fucking using that singing toothbrush like he
Yeah,
still
yeah.
bought it for him.
Well, of course. Also, it's kind of funny, and I thought of this in the moment, is that you can't get the singing toothbrush because it's loud and obnoxious, right? But then he really needed that toothbrush to go off while he was looking for the kid because he would have found him immediately, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Um, and then the way that he talks to his mom, he's like, "Why are you taking a side?" She's like, "I'm not taking a side, but like you scared the shit out of him." I also like too. She brings up, she's like, "Yeah, it's called a repair. Like you need to. There's a script online where you can fix this." And it's like she knows about that because, um, she's had to do it. I've never like, I didn't know there was like online scripts, but I've like obviously screwed up and had to go tell them like, "Hey,
There's
man."
online scripts. That's amazing. Yeah, I screwed up with my niece. Like, I forgot what I did, but I think we were trying to teach her, as you do, trying to teach kids like say please and thank you and I'm sorry and and I did something to her and she looked at me and she's like, say sorry. I'm like, I'm not saying sorry to you. And Taylor was like, you have to say sorry to her because we're trying to teach her how to say sorry. So if you don't say sorry, what kind of exam? I'm like, fuck. All right, I'll go say sorry to her, even though I'm not sorry at all.
So after this, they have this moment where he's like asking about his dad, and he calls the mom. He's like, "What, what does he know?" And he talks to the mom. And then there's this cute scene where he's giving him a bath, and he's like, "Do you want to fight about washing your hair, and then I'll wash your hair?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then they do like a little play fight, and then he's washing his hair. And it feels like, oh, he's finally starting to have like a rapport with this kid. And the movie, there's obviously an arc of them like developing like a really good relationship,
Yeah.
but it's not a straight line. It's not like just a straight curve. It's like it's bumpy. There's a lot
Life
of ups and downs.
isn't always a straight line, David. Life is bumpy.
I know. I was noting that in the movie.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of beautiful monologues like throughout the movie, and this is the one I was talking about on interviewers, like how they get to leave and the person can't leave their life. Um, and then he interviews Johnny about like why he's alone and did you tell my mom to leave my dad? And then there's the wrestling scene, and then there's like he needs to go to New Orleans. This is like kind of another like sort of pivotal part where he's talking to
The wrestling
his
scene?
no, where it's after the wrestling scene. I mean, if you want to get into the wrestling scene, you can talk about it all you want, but I'm talking about when he's on the street talking to his coworker about needing to go to New Orleans, and he loses Jesse once again.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was a great scene because that's almost like the convenience store loss, but like 10,000 times more worrisome.
And this one was on him, right? The kid hid the first time. This time he just like walked away and then didn't know where he was. Although it's probably the kid's fault too.
Although he did exactly what I think anyone would do. Like what I did if I've ever like lost my sister, my younger sister in the crowd. It's like you run off to try to find them. And then like when you get like a little bit of a good distance, you think, "Oh wait, they probably aren't actually this far from like the original
Right.
point." So you try to go back to the original point. Yeah, it's such a good scene.
Um, and then the kid just runs away to get on the bus. He's like, "You lost me." He's like, "I didn't lose you. Okay, I lost you. It's I lost you." And then the scene where he's like, "I can't deal with you anymore. I have to send you back to L.A." And on the way to the airport, he's like, "I gotta poop." And then he realizes the kid doesn't even need to go, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I can't go home. You can't send me home to my mom and dad." And it also, I think it works on Joaquin because he's like, "Oh, this kid wants to stay with me, right?" When he loses him a couple times, you're like, "This kid doesn't listen to me, doesn't like me." Like, but the kid is like pulling this move of locking himself in the bathroom because he wants to stay with you. I think is also why it works.
One thing I never understood is that if you already have the cab driver there, why not just have the cab driver drive you back to your house?
I don't know, probably just for movie purposes to make it like, hey, all right, we're staying.
Hmm.
I don't think I'd take a kid in New Orleans though.
I I mean, I've only visited New Orleans to like shoot a movie and party, so I don't know. Maybe there's like calmer. I bet you there's a lot of like museums and historical sites you could take a kid to.
No, there is. I just meant like it's a little bit dangerous.
I mean, any city's dangerous.
New Orleans is particularly dangerous.
Is it more dangerous than Chicago?
I don't know. There are parts of Chicago where you can feel relatively safe.
If you got 10,000 people playing Pokemon Go, sure.
Yeah. So I was talking to 10. Did you say 10? Oh, I think you said 10 million at first. I was like, what the fuck?
No.
So more interviews with the kids. I don't know if it's this one or the next one, but I read this and it's really fucking sad. So Devonte, the
I
kid with
know.
like the tattoo,
Yeah.
died. He was shot like very shortly after this movie. Or like in between when it was shot and when it was released. It's just like super fucking sad because that kid was obviously so young.
He was the guy who was like imagining what heaven would look like.
I just remember the part where he was like, "Oh, how did you get that tattoo?" He's like, "Nah, I'm not going to talk to you about that." And the lady's like, "Yeah, Devontae doesn't talk about his business." So we're in New Orleans, and Jesse starts listening to the tapes of like all the kids talking about their future and such, and then this is the scene where he does the repair, where he's like, I'm sorry, and I think Jesse's even like, you need to say you're sorry, and he's like says it, and he's like, I'm sorry too. Um, and then there's just more kid interviews, and he calls his sister. This is funny. So he's had a conversation with Jesse, and I don't remember exactly what, but he's talking about his mom eating steak, and he calls his sister. He's like, he told me you eat steak. You fucking got on to mom all the time about doing that, and she's just like, fuck, I got caught. And it's just like a very like funny scene where they're building back their relationship a little bit too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then Johnny collapses at the parade.
I found that to be interesting. Like where's the movie taking this? Sort of interesting.
Right. What is that? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could say like his life's not in the right place, like along with I guess his health. Like he's sort of let a lot of things go, relationships, potentially his health. Joaquin's like a little bit bigger in this, but not like I don't know. He's not like playing a fat guy. So yeah, I don't know what the health problems he has that cause him to fucking collapse. I do like that he makes a joke about it later. He's like, "Are you gonna be all right to carry me?" Like when they're walking later on when the mom shows up. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just interesting. And then Jesse interviews himself into into the microphone, and then we find out that the dad is going to get have outpatient care. And then there's this really cool scene where they sort of are yelling at each other after he finds out that the dad's going to be okay.
In the woods, right?
Yeah, and he's like, I'm fine. He's like, you can be not fine. It's reasonable to not be fine. He's like, I'm not fine. He's like, this is fucked up, and that makes sense.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, all that stuff is really good. The line where he's like, "Are you laughing or crying? I want to have the appropriate response," is like really good because it also reminds me like the kids all the time. You'll hear something, especially like our 3-year-old, and you're like, "Is she crying or laughing right now?" Like we can't tell because it's like very close sometimes. And then he's like, "Am I going to be like my dad?" He's like, "No, you're not. You're not going to be like your dad. I mean, he could be, but you don't tell the kids that."
Jesus, David.
It's just there's no like it's not a for sure thing you're gonna be like your dad. You're probably not gonna be like your dad. And then he starts listening back to the recording after they leave, and the kids. I think what the kid has a line about like he might be my best friend talking about Johnny.
Yeah.
And I love the recording he sends to Jesse, and he's like, I should have never tried to stop all your crazy talk. And he's like, and I will remember all this. And even if you don't, I'll remind
Yeah,
you.
there was a big point in the movie where it's like you're so young you're not gonna remember any of this, and then Jesse gets upset because he's like, yeah, I'm gonna remember this, but then like as you and I know as adults, you don't really remember shit that happens to you when you're younger. Maybe if it's traumatic enough, you can hold on to it.
Yeah, I have like my memories start from like 8 years old. I have some small memories before that, but nothing huge. Yeah, but that's like just a cool way to end the movie where he like sends him the tape and he's like, here are the tapes of all the, because he's every night, Johnny has been recording what happened that day and recording what happened with Jesse. And so now he like sort of has those memories. And it's like a through line he talked about of like, if you record things, you can record the mundane and the mundane becomes important.
You also have you touched on this lightly where Jesse interviews himself and there's that come on
Yeah.
scene, right? And I thought that was interesting from his perspective, being like life just goes, you know.
Yeah, well, and also just the fact that he didn't want to be recorded in the beginning, and then the fact that he would do that for Johnny because he did that for Johnny because he knew Johnny would appreciate it, and then Johnny did the recording for him because he knows that Jesse would appreciate it. Um, and that is the movie. One thing I read is that so the director of this did this sort of like art project for the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, and he did an interview of um, the children of parents that worked in Silicon Valley for like the bigger companies, just so like tech people, their kids. And one of the things he said is that he couldn't interview any of the kids of people that worked at Apple because the NDA that the people that worked at Apple signed was so strong that it prevented their kids from being interviewed. And the interview wasn't going to be like, tell me about Apple, you know what I mean? But he just thought that was pretty crazy. But he took that idea for that museum thing and then broadened it out to this. It's not the main crux of the movie, but it is kind of a cool part of it, especially the fact that these are real people,
Yeah.
real kids being interviewed and their real thoughts about like the world and the future. And it's just a cool concept for this.
Yeah, it's like they were prepping the kids. They were like, "Yeah, so you're just going to be interviewed about, just your thoughts, and we just want your truthful word." Oh, by the way, the interview is going to be done by Joaquin Phoenix. Okay? Okay.
It's like, why is the Joker interviewing me and asking why
This
is
was
he asking me what superpower I want?
He's doing some preventative maintenance. This is way before the Joker 2, I think, right? What year did this movie come out?
This came out in 2021. Joker was 2019, so you
Oh,
know.
shoot. So maybe not. Wow, he really transformed, huh? Because he was. So you're telling me he got like skinny for the Joker, got normal weight for this, then back to like grotesquely skinny for Joker 2?
Folie à deux? Yeah, I don't know.
Folie à
I mean,
deux?
it doesn't look like a ton. But yeah, he just looks a little more normal here.
So, final thoughts. I mean, I like the movie. I think A24 is just really good at either like scaring the bejesusly fucking shit out of you, or like really making really making you feel like touch on the heart sort of thing, right? And I think there was this moment as like I didn't really cry, but I teared up, and then as the movie was ending, when like he got in the car with his mom, or Joaquin Phoenix, I'm trying to remember, she picked him up from his house, right? And
Yeah.
they drove away. I started to tear up because I was just like, I know they're gonna see each other again, but it's gonna be a while, and it's just sad, something like beautiful, sad about the whole thing. But I mean, that's partially why I really like the movie, is because it was kind of just beautiful and sad.
So one thing we didn't mention is I thought the acting of all like the main people, so the actors, so Gabby Hoffman and that plays the sister, obviously Joaquin, but the kid was really good. Woody Norman.
Taylor didn't like him.
Well, I don't know what to say.
She
Seemed like
said
a
he was.
fucking.
She said he was kind of one note. Like everything was just this amount of sadness.
I don't
But
know.
I'm
To
like,
me,
that's also kind of like a kid too, though,
yeah,
right?
like it came off as pretty real. You know what this movie reminded me of too? It's a movie we've done, Away We Go. Just structurally, right? Because in Away We Go, they're like trying to find a place to raise their kids, and so they're driving around from place to
The John
place.
Krasinski and Maya Rudolph movie. Yes,
Yeah. Sorry,
yes.
I guess I should explain that. That obviously has like a funnier tone, but this where he's like going to these new locations, and like when he interviews the kids, you sort of get a feel for that location too, especially New Orleans. I don't know, just like that kind of the way it was conceptually drawn out. It reminded me a lot of that movie too. But yeah, I thought this was great. A little bit different than what I thought it would be. A little, very much less plot than I would have thought, but still like just like a very true like representation of like dealing with kids. You know what I mean? Like what it's like.
Well, you would know better than I.
You'll find out one day, buddy. Um, and I think you should like literally maybe like when you have a kid 5 years, 6 years into it, like watch this movie again and be like, oh yeah. Especially if it's like a little boy, because they're different. despite what society tells. No, I'm just joking. So anyway, I really enjoyed this one. I love all of Mike Mills' movies, so we will be doing 20th Century Women soon, and probably Thumbsucker too. So thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and I finally watched.
Come on.
Come on.